Noah Becker felt his pulse skid when the woman across the table did not smile. Candlelight sketched soft gold along the small wooden bird he'd set between the water glasses, but her gaze wasn't on the grain or the polish. It was somewhere far away, as if the gift had cut a hidden wire and sent her drifting into memory. He'd rehearsed a dozen ways to hand it over without sounding desperate, and then ruined all of them by blurting, "I made this for you," like a kid with glue on his fingers. The room hummed politely with other people's conversations. Silver chimed. Someone laughed. He mistook the shine at the edge of her eye for the glint of a flame until it slid down her cheek. "I'm sorry," he said, and the apology tasted metallic. "It's all I had. I shouldn't have." His voice thinned. The woman Emma Hart, according to the profile, touched the carved lark with careful fingertips, as if it might spook and fly, and whispered in a voice that made the hair rise along his arms. "Who told you to make this?" 6 hours earlier, Noah had been sitting at a wobbly kitchen table that listed like a boat in shallow water, staring at an inbox that kept refilling with the same politely lethal words, "Thank you for your interest." His daughter, Mia, had been at the other side with a fistful of crayons and her tongue caught in her teeth, coloring a dragon so ferocious it needed 3 shades of green. "You're doing that forehead thing," she'd announced without looking up. The squinty one. He'd tried to unknot his face and failed. Since the hospital room where his wife's hand had gone cold in his, Noah's life had been a sequence of patched roofs and short contracts, warehouses, dish pits, night shifts, anything that let him be home by bedtime. The last shift had ended 2 weeks ago with a handshake and a "see you when we're busy again." The pantry now held a stubborn jar of peanut butter and good intentions. On the counter, one soft $10 bill, a graze of coins, and a phone that rang with no one calling. Mia, who believed problems were just quests no one had accepted yet, stole the phone and sprinted through apps like a tiny hacker. "Dad," she declared, spinning the screen toward him, "you need a friend." The profile photo showed a woman with steady eyes and a smile, like a secret she'd chosen to share, Emma. A bio so short it felt brave, like long walks, old books, handmade things. Mia had already written, "Hi, I'm Noah," and hit send. When the reply arrived, "Sounds nice." The lantern at 7, Noah's heart misfired. The lantern wasn't a place you walked into with a coupon. It was the kind of restaurant where the floors didn't creak and the chairs had opinions. "We can't," he'd started, but Mia's chin trembled, and he remembered how fragile straight A's looked when they sat on top of a kid who worried about the rent. He swallowed his panic and changed the narrative out loud. "Or," he said, "we make a friend and bring kindness with us." He looked at the $10 like a man looking at a bridge that might hold. Then he put on the only collared shirt he owned, told Mia to guard the dragon, and left. He didn't take the bus. Shoes were cheaper than fares, and a walk was an argument he could win against the shaking in his stomach. The craft shop he loved like a chapel still smelled of sawdust and oil. He ran his thumb along blocks of basswood until one agreed with him. $7. He found a tiny bottle of tung oil for the rest, and carried both home as if they might evaporate if he walked too fast. He carved at the table under the same crooked lamp that had once lit midnight feedings, and when the first curl of wood fell away, he remembered the feeling in his hands, the way a blade could translate a thought into edges and light. He didn't choose a sparrow. He chose a lark, the bird his wife had loved to whistle for Mia when storms rattled the windows. He cut feather by feather, sanding between breaths, and rubbed oil until the pale wood woke into honey. When he held it up, the little body seemed to carry a note he couldn't hear but could feel in his chest. It looked like hope rendered small enough to pocket. Now that hope sat on linen between the water and the knife, and Noah could see every way this had been foolish. The last $10, the walk, the certainty that making something meant he had something to offer. He tried to retreat, to joke, to minimize, but Emma's eyes were bright, with that single impossible tear, fixed on the lark as if listening for a voice only she remembered. "Who told you to make this?" she asked again. And the question wasn't a scold. It was a test, a key offered toward a lock he didn't know he'd been circling. Noah's mouth went dry. "No one," he said, and even the lie of that frightened him, because grief could be someone. "My daughter saw you liked handmade things. I used to carve. The lark. It just felt right." The waiter hovered with a pen. Emma didn't look up. "Another minute," she said, and the authority in her voice rearranged the air. Then she lifted her gaze to Noah with something like hunger and something like fear, and the candle snapped once as if agreeing that what came next would decide everything. She cupped the lark in her palm, closed her eyes, and whispered, "My mother kept one exactly like this." Emma didn't open her eyes for a long beat, and when she did, the room she looked into wasn't this one. "When I was 10, she said softly, thumb tracing the lark's beak, "my mother told me that small, stubborn songs are what get people through storms. She wore a lark on a thin chain every day. Said if you listen closely, you can hear the sky teaching you to keep going." She smiled without joy. "That necklace was lost in a move we couldn't afford. I've tried to find another for years, but the ones I bought were wrong. Pretty, yes. Soulless." Her gaze returned to him, focused now, measuring. "This isn't soulless." The waiter drifted back as if tugged by tide. Emma didn't look up. "Give us a few more minutes," she said, and the quiet command made the pen hesitate midair before retreating. Noah felt all his defenses humor, apology, the exit plan fall away. "I didn't mean to make you sad," he said. "I just wanted to bring something honest." She nodded once, then set the lark down between them like a treaty signed by two countries that had not planned to meet. "Honest is rare. Don't apologize for it." He tried to, anyway, because habit is a heavy coat. "I can't stay long," he said too quickly. "I didn't come to dash." She cut him off with a small lift of her hand, not unkind. "You came because a brave girl thought her dad deserved a good evening," she said, and his throat tightened at the accuracy of it. "And because you still know how to make something that lasts." She finally glanced at the menu only long enough to close it. "I'm starving. If you leave, I'll have to eat alone, and I'm terrible company when I do that." The joke landed like a truce flag. The waiter reappeared as if conjured. Emma ordered with unstudied certainty, then looked at Noah's closed menu. "Chef's special for him as well," she added before he could protest. When the server left, she leaned in, lowered her voice. "You weren't going to order. I'm not going to pretend I didn't notice." He started to defend himself, stopped, and let the truth stand between them. "I wasn't," he said, "but I could eat a mountain." She laughed real, surprised, and some locked door inside the evening opened. They talked in the way strangers sometimes do when they've both set down their armor by accident and are too curious to pick it up again. He told her about the first time he carved how a cheap pocket knife and a piece of broom handle had become a clumsy boat that refused to sink in a bathtub, and how his wife had treated it like a crown jewel. He admitted selling his tools one by one when bills came due, keeping only the blades he couldn't bear to watch leave. Emma listened the same way she had touched the lark, with attention that felt like warmth. In return, she didn't list titles or awards or buildings she owned. She talked about a woman who taught her to bake bread and whistle and write thank you notes, lessons that sounded simple until you tried to live them. "My mother thought kindness was a skill you practiced or you lost," Emma said, rolling her water glass between her palms. "Sometimes I think I've been out of practice." The food arrived, fragrant and perfect. Noah tried not to devour it and failed. Emma pretended not to notice, then caught his eye and raised a brow that said, "Good, eat." For the first time in weeks, he did without counting bites. By the time the plates were cleared, the room had thinned to murmurs and the kind of clinking that means a night is choosing to end. Noah reached for the lark and then stopped, unsure whether he was allowed. Emma nudged it toward him, the faintest smile at one corner of her mouth. "Keep it with you," she said. "I already know what it feels like." He blinked. "I made it for you." "You made it for yourself first," she said. "Give it to me when you're ready to stop apologizing for it." They stood at the same time and gravity did its party trick with proximity. He could smell citrus and paper and something like cedar. At the door, he fumbled a thank you that felt too small and tried to make it larger with sincerity. "You didn't have to do any of this." She slipped a slim card from a small clutch and placed it in his hand the way a dealer slides an ace to the player they've decided to root for. "I did," she said simply, "and I'm not finished." The card was thick and unpretentious. Emma Hart, Strategic Initiatives. No company name, no phone tree, a direct number, and an email that was just her name. The valet announced a car. A black sedan rolled forward with the discretion of an accomplice. "Noah," she said, turning back once. "Are you looking for work?" He almost laughed, because the question was either a kindness or a miracle, and he didn't know which one would hurt more if it vanished in daylight. "Always," he said, the word more naked than he intended. There's a floor I visit sometimes, Emma said, as if floors were places you check on like friends. Good people, logistics, inventory, the part of the machine that actually moves. She hesitated, decided. Call me Monday morning at 9. Ask for HR. They'll be expecting you. The words rearranged the future so abruptly, he felt dizzy. Why me? He asked. Because there are questions you ask to make sure you're awake. She tilted her head. Because you spent your last $10 on something no spreadsheet could measure, she said. Because you noticed the grain. The driver opened her door. She slid inside, lifted a hand in a small, precise wave, and was gone. Noah stood on the curb with the card burning cool against his skin, then looked up on instinct. Someone was watching him from across the street. A tall man in a perfect coat with a phone to his ear and a smile that never reached his eyes. Noah walked home under a sky that had not yet decided what it wanted to be and tried to make room in his head for a possibility that felt like a trick. The card was a weight in his pocket, the good kind, the kind that says stay. He didn't tell Mia everything when he tucked her in, only that the lady with the steady eyes like dragons and might know people who needed help keeping things where they belong. Mia, who conducted hope like an orchestra, whispered, "See? I told you." In the living room, Noah set the lark on the table and stared at it until the edges softened. He hadn't imagined the man outside. The face had the polished blankness of someone who inherited a smile and never bothered to see if it fit. As Noah drifted, the night rearranged itself around that look, a side-eye cataloging, not curiosity, but possession. He woke before dawn with his heart running and no sound to chase. On Monday, at exactly 9, he would call a number. He would ask for HR. He would say his name out loud to a stranger and hope it meant something. He didn't know that across a boardroom table the man with the perfect coat had already spoken his name in a different tone entirely. Noah Becker, Cole Warren said into his phone, eyes on the reflection of his own grin in the glass. Flag him. If he touches my floor, I want to know before he does. Cole Warren's reflection still clung to Noah's mind when he dialed the number from Emma's card Monday morning. His palms sweated so much he nearly dropped the phone. He expected a gatekeeper, maybe an automated menu with endless options, but instead a clear, professional voice answered by the second ring. Human Resources. How can I help you? Noah cleared his throat. My name is Noah Becker. Emma Hart told me to call. There was the sound of keys tapping, then a sudden warmth. Yes, Mr. Becker, we've been expecting you. Can you come in at 2 today for an orientation interview? The words didn't make sense at first, like a foreign language. By the time he stammered yes, his heart was hammering so hard he could barely hear. Mia's hug nearly knocked him over when he told her, "Dad's got a meeting for a job." She danced around the kitchen, bare feet slapping tile, chanting, "See? See," as though she'd cast the spell herself. The building was taller than sense, glass climbing into the clouds, a place Noah felt smaller with every step he took toward the doors. Inside, marble and silence conspired to make him nervous. A man in a gray suit introduced himself as Frank, warehouse supervisor, and shook Noah's hand with a grip like rope. "We're looking for steady people," Frank said after a few blunt questions. "Your name came recommended." He tapped the resume Noah had scribbled half full. "That doesn't happen often." By the time Frank said, "Be here tomorrow, 6 a.m. sharp," Noah felt as if the walls might tip over. He left with a badge in his pocket and relief so sharp it was painful. For the first time in years, the air outside tasted like something he might deserve. He didn't notice the dark sedan parked at the curb until its tinted window slid down an inch and a familiar profile angled just enough for him to see. Cole Warren, COO. He smiled like a man who already knew the ending to a story. Noah quickened his pace, badge burning against his chest. The warehouse was its own small country. Forklifts gliding like sharks, beeping scanners, the rustle of cardboard, and the slap of tape. Noah threw himself into it. He was early. He stayed late. He memorized codes faster than most could clock them. Frank nodded in grudging approval. Other workers gave him space, but one younger man, Ben Carter, hovered sometimes. Eyes too quick, questions too strange. "Big shipment today, huh? Northern Hub, right?" he'd asked once, too casually. Noah brushed it off, too focused on accuracy to think about the weight behind the words. Days blurred until Friday, when the air thickened. A hush rolled through the warehouse like a draft. Workers straightened without thinking. Then Noah saw him shoes polished enough to blind, suit knife cut to precision Cole Warren himself. He stopped in front of Noah, eyes sweeping over him like he was inspecting a tool left out in the rain. "Becker," he said, low and deliberate. "So you're the charity hire." Noah's gut twisted. "I work hard, sir." Warren leaned closer, his voice cold enough to sting. "Remember who signs the checks. And remember we don't keep mistakes here." He turned and left, shoes echoing like a warning bell. Noah tried to bury the encounter under work, but the words burrowed under his skin. He didn't tell Mia, he only said, "It's going fine," while she quizzed him about dragons in school. But the pressure gnawed. It was worse the following week when Frank summoned him to the office with a face like paper. "That shipment to the Northern Hub," Frank said, throwing a file on the desk. "It landed at the Pacific Hub. Wrong side of the world. Client screaming. Our necks are on the block. And your signature's on the manifest." Noah stared at the papers. "No, that's impossible. I checked every code. It said Northern." Frank's jaw clenched. "Evidence says otherwise." "Check the footage," Noah pleaded. "Check the system logs. Something's wrong." Frank's voice was weary and brutal. "Head office wants someone to blame. They've chosen you. Clean your locker." Noah's world caved in. He walked the floor with eyes on his back and whispers trailing him. At the door, he saw Cole Warren across the aisle. The COO's smirk, small, precise, was louder than any accusation. Noah understood. This was no accident. Someone had set the trap, and he'd stepped right into it. He lied to Mia that night. "They gave me a couple of days off," he said, heart breaking as her eyes lit up with the thought of a park trip. Later, in the dark, with her asleep, he sat at the table staring at Emma's card. He couldn't call. How could he? Fired after a week, what would she think? But shame wrestled with memory until his phone buzzed. A message. "Noah, I just heard what happened. I'm so sorry. Please, can we talk?" He froze, thumb hovering. Pride screamed to delete it. Vanish, save what little dignity he had left. But then he looked at Mia, curled in her bed, and thought of the lie he'd told her. Pride was a luxury. Her future was necessity. He typed, deleted, typed again. Finally, "I don't know what to say. I didn't make that mistake, but I can't prove it." Her reply came in seconds. "You don't have to prove it to me. Meet me tomorrow, 9 a.m., bench by the duck pond." Noah set the phone down, hands trembling. For the first time in years, the night felt like a cliff edge. He had no idea whether the morning would bring a hand to catch him or the push that sent him over. Noah arrived at the park early, the morning sharp with cold. Ducks floated like idle messengers on the pond, their ripples disturbing the glassy surface. He sat on the bench with his hands locked together, every muscle taut, and waited. Emma appeared without fanfare, dressed simply in a coat that made her look less like a corporate storm and more like someone searching for quiet. She sat beside him with a polite distance, watching the ducks as if they held the script. "Tell me everything," she said, voice low but edged with steel. So he did. He described Cole Warren's visit to the warehouse, the condescending tone, the veiled threat. He explained the shipment, how he had checked and double-checked, how the manifest had said Northern, not Pacific. He spoke of the humiliation, Frank's disappointment, and the unmistakable smirk on Warren's face when the firing came down. By the end, Noah's voice was steady but hollow, like someone reading a eulogy. "It's my word against his," he said bitterly. "And in that world, his word is law." Emma's gaze never wavered. When she turned to him, her eyes were no longer soft, they were shards of determination. "You're wrong," she said. "This isn't just your fight anymore. It's ours." She hesitated, then confessed something that landed like a fist to his gut. "Cole and I, we were engaged once." Noah blinked, the words snapping the pieces into place. The venom in Cole's stare, the personal edge to his threat, it wasn't about a simple worker. "He sees anything connected to me as his," Emma continued, her voice tight with an old wound. "When I value something or someone, he twists it until it breaks. He saw you as a threat, Noah, because I chose to see you." Noah stared at her, the weight of it almost unbearable. He was a pawn in a game he hadn't even known existed. "So what now?" he asked. "Even if it's true, how do we prove it?" Emma's expression hardened. "You don't," she said. "I do." She pulled out her phone, fingers flying with commands that sounded less like conversation and more like strategy. "Graves," she said into the receiver. "Full diagnostic on the hub error. I want server logs, access records, every digital footprint in the last 72 hours. And Graves be invisible. When she ended the call, she turned back, her hand brushing his arm with sudden gentleness. Go home, Noah. Be with Mia. Let me fight this. The next day, Emma's phone call came at dusk, her voice taut with triumph and fury. The manifest was altered, not a mistake, a hack. Sophisticated enough to look like a system glitch, but it leaves footprints. And the warehouse camera? Shut off for 12 minutes, manually, with a code only a handful of executives have. Her silence said the rest. Cole Warren. But he didn't get his hands dirty, Graves had added. He used someone on the inside. A junior, desperate. That night Noah replayed the week like a broken reel, searching for something he'd missed. A face flickered in his mind: Ben Carter, the jumpy forklift operator, the one who had asked too many strange questions about the Northern Hub. Noah sat up, heart racing. He remembered Ben's nervous eyes, the way he'd asked about routes he had no reason to care about. He grabbed his phone and texted Emma. This might be nothing, but a kid named Ben Carter asked odd things about the shipment. It felt off. Her reply was instant. Stay where you are. I'll handle it. But an hour later, her call came sharp and urgent. You're right. Ben received a $10,000 wire transfer right after the shipment left. We've got the money trail. Now we need a confession. He won't talk to me, but he might talk to you. Noah's chest tightened. He wasn't built for confrontations. He'd spent years avoiding them, keeping his head low, surviving by silence. But Emma's words left no room for retreat. You're a father, she said. He needs to see the man whose life he helped ruin. He needs to hear what his choice cost. That may be the only way he admits the truth. 30 minutes later, Noah stood on the sagging porch of a house that looked as worn out as its owner. The paint peeled in sheets, the screen door hung crooked. When it creaked open, Ben's gaunt face appeared, eyes darting like a cornered animal's. What do you want? He whispered. To talk, Noah said evenly. Unless you'd rather I tell your neighbors why you've suddenly got 10 grand in your account. Ben flinched like he'd been struck, backing into the dim, stale-smelling living room. I don't know what you're talking about, he muttered, pacing like a trapped rat. Noah stayed in the center of the room, steady and quiet. I have a daughter, he said, 7 years old. This job was our chance at a future. You helped steal that from us. Ben froze, eyes wide. He said no one would get hurt. He blurted, panic unraveling his voice. Noah pressed forward. He lied. And when this comes out, who do you think Cole will blame? Himself or the forklift operator with dirty money in his account? The dam broke. Ben collapsed onto a chair, words spilling fast and jagged. He described how Cole had approached him in the parking lot, how he knew about his debts, how he'd promised the job wouldn't be lost, only shuffled. He explained the simple instructions. Shut the camera, swap the label, keep your mouth shut. The money hit his account the next morning, but so did the guilt. Noah, hand trembling, slid his phone from his pocket and tapped record. Every word, every sob, captured. When Ben finally fell silent, head in his hands, Noah showed him the glowing screen. I'm sorry, Ben, he said quietly, but I need this. Ben looked up, terror-stricken. You'll take it to the cops? I'll take it to the woman he tried to fool, Noah corrected. And you have a choice. Stay here, wait for Cole's lawyers to bury you, or come with me now and tell her yourself. Be the man who tried to fix his mistake. Ben stared at him, chest heaving, then finally nodded, broken. Okay, he whispered. I'll go. As Noah led him outside, the streetlight flickered, and for a moment he thought he saw a black sedan idling at the corner. Watching, waiting. Ben's knees trembled all the way up the elevator to the 81st floor. The doors opened to a lobby so polished it seemed to reject him on sight, and when Graves, the severe-looking security chief, ushered him inside Emma's office, he nearly turned back. The room was all glass and height. The city sprawled below like a map. Emma sat behind a desk that looked more like a judge's bench, a lawyer with a briefcase at her side. Noah stood close enough to steady Ben with a glance. Tell her, he said quietly. Ben swallowed, then began. The words came out ragged, stammering, but the story matched what Noah had recorded. Cole's approach, the threats, the payment, the swapped label, the shutdown camera. The lawyer noted every detail. When Ben finished, his eyes were bloodshot, his voice broken. I didn't think it would ruin anyone, he muttered. I was drowning. Emma leaned forward, gaze like a scalpel. You conspired to sabotage my company, she said. Ben flinched, but she continued. But you confessed. You'll sign an affidavit, testify when asked. In return, we won't press charges. Walk out now, start over. But if you ever accept another bribe, you won't get this chance again. Ben signed with hands that shook so badly the ink splattered. Graves escorted him out, and silence settled like dust. When the lawyer departed too, Emma's mask shifted. She walked around the desk, closer to Noah, her voice softer. You were extraordinary, she said. You faced him with calm, not fury. That's a strength even my executives don't have. Noah looked down, embarrassed. I just thought about Mia. If she made a mistake one day, I'd want someone to give her the chance to admit it. Emma's smile reached her eyes this time. That's why Cole hates you already. You remind him of everything he isn't. She poured 2 glasses from a cabinet, amber liquid catching the city lights. They stood side by side, looking out at the glowing sprawl, sipping in silence. Finally she spoke, her voice quiet but fierce. We have him, Noah. The evidence is enough. Tomorrow, the board meets. Cole will try to spin it. He'll fail. She turned toward him, the fire of decision in her gaze. It's time to end this. The morning boardroom crackled with tension. Executives whispered, papers shuffled, and when Cole strode in last, he wore confidence like armor. He launched into his speech before anyone asked, detailing how he had protected the company from an incompetent hire, how he designed new safeguards. His voice was silk over steel. But when he finished, Emma rose. That's a compelling story, Cole, she said evenly. But it's fiction. The screens behind her lit up with evidence. Hacked manifests, proxy servers, the timed camera outage. Cole's jaw clenched. Circumstantial, he snapped. Anyone could dash, Emma cut him off. Then there's the $10,000 transfer to Ben Carter. And this. The lawyer distributed copies of the signed affidavit. Murmurs erupted. Cole stood, fury cracking his composure. Lies. You're framing me. Emma's voice was icy calm. You framed yourself. I just turned on the lights. The vote was unanimous. Termination for cause. Security entered, and as Cole was led away, his eyes locked on Noah standing quietly in the hall. For the first time, his smirk was gone, replaced by something darker, a promise that this wasn't over. When the boardroom cleared, Emma stepped out into the corridor, shoulders squared from battle, yet eyes searching. They found Noah's, and in that instant the weight of victory and survival passed between them like a current. She walked to him without hesitation, slid her hand into his, a gesture so simple, yet so public it redrew the ground they stood on. Come, she said, a spark of light breaking through her fatigue. There's something I want you to see. She led him not down to the lobby, but across the executive wing to a quiet corner. A frosted glass door opened into a room that smelled faintly of fresh wood. Sunlight spilled through wide windows onto an empty workbench, a drafting table, space waiting to be claimed. My company spends millions on soulless gifts each year, Emma said, eyes bright. That ends now. This will be the artisanal design division, and it needs a director who understands that the best things are made by hand. If you want it, know it's yours. He stared at her, stunned. The man who had walked in with $10 left was being offered a life. His voice thick with disbelief and hope. He whispered, I accept. The weeks that followed were a blur of transformation. Noah's office filled with sketches, chisels, prototypes that smelled of cedar and oil. He hired a small team craftsmen and dreamers, and together they turned the company's gifts into pieces that carried meaning. Demand surged. Executives who once rolled their eyes at handmade trinkets now displayed them like treasures. And through it all, Emma visited often, sometimes with questions, sometimes just to watch him work. In evenings, she traded her power suits for simple sweaters, sharing dinners with Noah and Mia at the kitchen table where crayons still rolled between plates. The girl adored her, tugging her into games, into dragon drawings, into laughter that filled spaces too long empty. Emma, who had lived in boardrooms and skyscrapers, learned to tie Mia's shoelaces and burn pancakes without apology. And Noah, who had lived in scarcity for so long, began to believe that abundance wasn't only money, it was safety, family, love. But shadows don't vanish overnight. On a rain-streaked evening as he locked his new office, Noah caught sight of something in the glass's own reflection, and behind it, at the end of the hall, a figure too familiar. Cole Warren, watching from the shadows, no longer smiling. Noah froze in the corridor, the keys still in his hand, rain streaking down the glass wall behind him. Cole didn't move, only stood there at the far end of the hall, half-shadowed, as if the building itself bent around him. Then, with deliberate calm, Cole turned and disappeared into the stairwell without a word. The silence he left behind was heavier than any threat he could have spoken. Noah's chest tightened, but he forced his breath steady. He wouldn't tell Emma tonight. Not yet. He wouldn't poison the fragile calm Mia had found in her laughter with Emma over pizza and crayons. Still, sleep was a shallow thing that night, broken by the echo of Cole's polished shoes on concrete, the ghost of his stare. He woke before dawn and sat at the workbench, carving lines into wood just to quiet his mind. By sunrise, a small phoenix sat in his palm, wings stretched as if demanding rebirth. He tucked it into his pocket like armor and carried it with him to the tower. 2 weeks later, Noah's division was thriving, orders flowing faster than the small team could craft them. Emma dropped by more often now, not as the CEO, but as Emma, jeans rolled at the ankle, hair tied back, asking about sanding techniques and teasing Noah about his habit of squinting at sketches until they blurred. But under the warmth, a tension simmered. Emma's phone buzzed with board politics, whispered alliances, and more than once Noah caught her frowning at a message she wouldn't explain. One evening, as Mia proudly presented Emma with a dragon drawn in neon markers, Emma's smile faltered for just a heartbeat. "That's beautiful," she whispered, but her eyes were far away. Later, when Noah pressed, she admitted in a low voice, "Cole still has influence. He's dangerous when cornered." Noah thought of the stairwell, the silence, the stare. He didn't tell her he'd already seen proof of that. The reckoning came in the form of a crisis meeting. A shipment of proprietary designs from Noah's new division wooden prototypes meant for an exclusive client had vanished en route. Security logs were missing, manifests corrupted. The weight of déjà vu crushed Noah's chest. This time, though, Emma didn't wait for accusations to pile up. She stormed into the boardroom with Graves at her side, slammed evidence on the table, and declared, "This is sabotage, not error." Again, but Cole, somehow, was already there with lawyers, smiling with the cool arrogance of a man who'd had time to prepare. "Careful, Emma," he said smoothly. "Accusing a former executive without proof could be costly." The board murmured uneasily. Emma's jaw clenched. She turned to Noah, eyes steady. "Then we get proof." And in that moment, the fight became theirs again together, not apart. That night, Noah couldn't sit still. The thought of Cole dismantling everything he had rebuilt, everything Mia had finally come to trust, ignited a fury he hadn't known he carried. He found himself walking the dark streets toward a neighborhood too familiar, the rundown row where Ben Carter lived. The younger man answered the door with suspicion. "I told them everything," Ben muttered. "What more do you want?" Noah leaned against the frame, voice low. "Proof. Cole isn't finished. If he used you once, he's using someone else now. Who else did he talk to? Who else has debts?" Ben hesitated, then sighed. "There's a guy, loader named Marcus. Owes money all over town. Cole's been seen talking to him." It was thin, but it was a thread. Noah gripped Ben's shoulder. "Then pull it before he destroys anyone else." For the first time, Ben didn't look away. "If Cole goes down, maybe I finally sleep at night." He scribbled an address. Noah tucked it away, heart pounding. When he stepped outside, rain slicked the street, headlights flared and a black sedan idled at the curb, engine low, as if it had been waiting just for him. Noah froze, the streetlight painting his reflection on the wet pavement. The rear window slid down just enough for a silhouette to show. Cole, cigarette glowing, eyes like ice. He raised 2 fingers in a lazy salute. Then the window sealed, and the car rolled away, slow, deliberate. Noah stood in the rain, soaked to the bone, realizing the truth that chilled him deeper than the storm. This wasn't over. Cole wasn't retreating. He was circling, watching, and next time, he wouldn't just come for Noah's job. He'd come for everything Noah loved. The storm outside rattled the apartment windows that night, but Noah barely heard it. He sat at the kitchen table, Mia's crayons scattered across its scarred surface, the address Ben had scribbled burning a hole in his pocket. Across the hall, Mia slept curled around her stuffed dragon, her breathing steady, safe for now. Noah stared at the door, half expecting a knock that never came. Instead, his phone buzzed. A message from Emma. We need to move fast. Graves is pulling security logs. Meet me at headquarters at 7 a.m. Noah typed I'll be there and hit send before doubt could creep in. He pulled the small wooden phoenix from his pocket. The one he'd carved the night Cole reappeared. Its wings spread in defiance. He set it by Mia's lamp as if it could guard her dreams. At dawn, the tower felt less like a workplace and more like a fortress bracing for siege. Emma met him in her office. Already in motion, her phone pressed to her ear, her lawyer pacing nearby. She ended the call and turned to Noah, her eyes fierce. Cole has a man inside, she said. Graves traced logins tied to Marcus Hale Loader in the warehouse. Debts everywhere. He was paid through the same shell account Ben mentioned. We have enough to confront him, but we need him to admit it. Noah nodded grimly. He won't talk to you. He'll talk to me. Emma hesitated. It's risky. Noah thought of Mia, of her bright certainty that her dad could fix anything. So is letting Cole win. Without waiting for her answer, he headed for the warehouse, Graves shadowing him at a distance like silent backup. Marcus Hale looked cornered the moment Noah found him on the loading dock. Sweat beaded his temple though the air was cold. You don't know what you're doing, Marcus muttered, stacking crates too fast, too clumsy. Cole promised Dash he promised you'd be safe? Noah cut in, voice sharp. That you'd be invisible? Ask Ben how that turned out. He's signing affidavits now. Marcus froze, eyes flicking. Noah pressed harder. Cole doesn't keep allies. He keeps tools. When this blows up, who do you think takes the fall? Him, or the loader with dirty transfers in his account? Marcus's breath came fast, shallow. I had no choice, he rasped. He knew everything, my debts, my family. His words cracked, spilling into confession. I switched the files, shut down the cameras. He said it would just delay things, not destroy them. Noah's phone was already recording in his pocket. Then tell the truth, he said quietly, or Cole will eat you alive when he's done. Marcus sank onto a crate, defeated, and whispered, Fine, I'll talk. By nightfall, Emma had Marcus in her office with Graves and the lawyer. His statement joined Ben's, his signature trembling on fresh papers. Emma stood tall, her silhouette carved sharp against the city lights. Tomorrow, we end this, she declared. The board will hear everything, every payment, every hack, every betrayal. She looked at Noah, her voice softening. You've done enough. Let me handle the rest. But Noah shook his head. Cole came for me first. He'll keep coming. I'm not hiding. Emma studied him, something unspoken flickering between them, then gave a small nod. Then stand with me. That night, as Noah tucked Mia into bed, she asked sleepily, Did you win, Daddy? He kissed her forehead, whispering, Not yet, sweet pea. But tomorrow we will. Outside, headlights flashed once across the window, too deliberate to be chance. Cole's car slid past the curb, slow as a shark. The war wasn't tomorrow. It had already begun. The next morning, the boardroom was packed with power, tension thick as fog. Cole sat at the far end of the table, immaculate as ever, lawyers flanking him like armor. Emma entered with Graves, the lawyer, and Noah at her side. Murmurs rippled. Noah didn't belong in that room by rank, but by truth, he had earned his place. Emma began calmly, her voice carrying like a gavel. This company has been sabotaged from within. Here is the evidence. Screens lit with hacked manifests, timestamps, payments traced to shell accounts. Cole leaned back, mask intact. Speculation, he said smoothly. Desperate attempts to shift blame from your pet project. Emma's smile was sharp. Then let's hear it from the men you paid. The doors opened. Ben Carter and Marcus Hale walked in, pale but resolute, escorted by Graves. They gave their testimonies, their words recorded, signatures signed. Cole's smirk cracked for the first time. His lawyers sputtered, but the room's mood had already shifted. Board members whispered, eyes narrowing. Emma struck the final blow. This isn't about mistakes. This is about betrayal. And this board must choose who leads it forward, me or a saboteur. The vote was swift. Cole's termination echoed like a gunshot. But as security closed in, Cole's eyes locked on Noah. No words, just a look deadly. Cold, a silent vow that this war was far from over. That night, the city felt quieter, as if the storm that had hovered over Noah's life for years had finally broken and passed. He walked out of the tower beside Emma, the weight of the day heavy but no longer suffocating. For the first time in so long, The future didn't look like a locked door, it looked like an open road. He squeezed her hand gently, and she returned the pressure with a soft smile. Yet even in victory, he knew scars would linger. Cole's glare before being dragged out wasn't just anger, it was a promise. But Noah had faced him and survived. That knowledge settled inside him like steel. At home, Mia rushed to the door, throwing her arms around him, demanding to know if he had won. He lifted her high, kissed her forehead, and whispered, "Yes, sweet pea, we won." Emma stood in the doorway watching them, her expression full of something deeper than triumph, something that looked very much like home. The months that followed were transformation itself. Noah's new division blossomed into a symbol of creativity inside the corporate giant, handcrafted designs carrying his team's mark into the world. Clients who had once expected glossy, soulless gifts now clamored for his wooden sculptures, each piece unique, alive with story. He was no longer the man scraping by, hoping for shifts that might not come. He was building something that mattered, and he was doing it on his own terms. At the same time, Emma allowed herself to slow down for the first time in years. She spent evenings in Noah's modest apartment, cooking with him, helping Mia with school projects, rediscovering laughter that wasn't scheduled between board meetings. And Mia, bright, fearless Mia, thrived in the warmth of it all, no longer sensing her father's constant, thinky silence, but his joy. It was a crisp autumn evening, nearly a year after that first impossible dinner at the restaurant. The workshop glowed with lamplight, shavings of cedar and cherry wood scattered across the bench. Noah had carved something new, something that had taken weeks of patient, steady hands to complete. A small box, polished smooth, with two larks intertwined on its lid. He asked Emma to meet him there, telling her only that he had something to show her. She arrived in a simple coat, her hair pulled back, no boardroom armor, just Emma. He placed the box in her hands, his voice low and steady. "A year ago, I spent my last $10 to make a lark for a stranger. Tonight, I give you this, not as a gift, but as a promise." She opened it slowly, her breath catching at the sight of the ring nestled inside. For a moment, silence reigned, broken only by the faint hum of the city outside. Then Noah dropped to one knee. "Emma, you saw me when I thought I was invisible. You gave me back hope and a family. Will you marry me?" Tears gathered in her eyes, not of sadness, but of joy long deferred. She set the box down, cupped his face in her hands, and whispered, "Yes. 1,000 times, yes." Noah rose, pulling her into his arms, and for a moment the world narrowed to just the two of them, hearts beating in rhythm, surrounded by the scent of sawdust and oil. Then Mia's small voice piped up from the doorway she had been watching, wide-eyed, a crayon still clutched in her hand. "Does this mean Emma's going to be my mom?" The question broke into laughter, tears, and a warmth that filled the room until it overflowed. Emma crouched down, pulling Mia close. "If you'll have me," she said softly. Mia nodded so hard her ponytail bounced. "Forever," she declared. And just like that, the family that had been broken, lost, and waiting to be remade finally found its shape. Their wedding wasn't a spectacle of wealth and power, but a celebration of love and resilience. In a sunlit garden, surrounded by a circle of close friends, Mia scattered petals down the aisle in a golden dress that seemed to hold the light itself. Noah waited at the altar, his heart pounding, and when Emma walked toward him, her smile radiant, he knew he was the richest man alive. Later, at the reception, he placed the original lark, the one that had started it all, at the center of the table. Its wooden wings gleamed under the lantern light, a reminder of the night when hope was carved out of desperation. Noah raised a glass, his voice thick with gratitude. "This little bird bought me a chance, a life, a family. It taught me that sometimes the smallest acts of kindness carry the greatest weight." Emma's hand slid into his. Mia beamed beside them. And in that moment, Noah realized the truth. His last $10 had been the best investment of his life. Not in wood, not in survival, but in love.